leading, supporting, collaborating. Welcome to the Online Lounge, Network Cork's podcast series.
Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Network Cork Online Lounge. I'm Paula Scopetta, podcast officer and Network Cork Committee member for 2023. Just a little bit about me. I work at Eli Lilly, where I started as an early professional in 2015 and today holding the position of Director of Clinical Development with a focus on diabetes and obesity clinical trials. I think that's more than enough. I want to straight away welcome our guest. We have Joanne Hession connected today online. That is the founder and CEO of Lift Ireland, leading Ireland's future together. You're very welcome, Joanne.
Thanks, Paula. Great to be here.
So a little bit about Joanne too. Joanne is a leadership expert, founder of two businesses, the Entrepreneurs Academy and the EQ.IE, the accreditation expert. Joanne is also a TEDx speaker and co-author of the best-selling book, Don't Get a Job, Build a Business for Entrepreneurs. Joanne's genuine care for people and Ireland inspired her to create Lift Ireland in 2018, which has been addressed as the country's first and most inclusive social enterprise, focused on elevating the standard of leadership. In 2019, she received the International Award for Equipping Others for her leadership role within Lift Ireland. So we are very much looking forward to hear from Joanne, but I also want to welcome Barbara Nugent here in studio with us. Welcome to M5 Studios.
Hi, Paula. How are you today?
Good, thanks. Thank you for being here. So a little bit about Barbara as well. Barbara is the owner and director of Transilient Coaching and the brand EQ.IE. With over 30 years business experience as a senior finance executive, Barbara is now a leadership development consultant and executive coach. Barbara has a keen interest in emotional intelligence, resilience building, team empowerment, and courageous leadership. That's a lot, Barbara.
Thanks, Paula. That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so today we'll have the opportunity with our guests to get to know more about what Lift is, what it does, and the implementation of Lift circles within Network Cork members. But before deep diving into it, I would like to start exchanging our point of view on leadership and what a leader is. So, John, I'm going to start with you. I had the opportunity to listen to a very insightful podcast episode that you have been a guest of with the Happy Pairs, and you were saying that leadership is not a position or a title. You were saying that you can get a new role, a leadership role, and nevertheless, that doesn't make you a leader straight away. Or at the same time, you might not cover a leadership role and be a leader. That resonated very much with me, Joanne, because I remember getting my first role as a team leader in 2018, and I was highly motivated by the opportunity, super excited about it. I felt strong about having the necessary technical skill, but nevertheless, I knew that it wasn't going to be straightforward. I knew I had to bring people with me, and I had to inspire the team, motivate them. So Lift states that everyone can be a leader based on their power of influence. So is then leadership equal to influence? Can you tell us more about it, Joanne?
Yeah, absolutely. Paula, you've got it in a nutshell, and great to be here with you too, Barbara. So leadership at its very core and at its very essence is influence. We all are leaders. It doesn't matter whether or not we've got a position or a title. The thing about it is that if I do have a position or a title, I need to be more careful about how I'm leading because I tend to have greater sphere of influence around me. But leadership at its very essence is about influence. And we can influence people in a positive way and we can influence people in a negative way. And at Lift and everything that you do in Network Ireland and Cork is all about positive influence. It's about how can we influence other people in a positive way. So look, think of it this way. I'm the CEO of my organization. That means I have a position and title. But that position or title just buys me a little bit of time with people. That's all it does. If I don't behave and act in a way that it has integrity, that shows respect for others, that that values other people, where I listen to others, where I have a positive attitude, then nobody really wants to follow me, no matter what my position or title is. And the same thing when I'm at home. At home, I have 3 late teenagers and into their 20s. And sometimes I'm leading them and sometimes they're leading me. And that's the way it should be. I just need to, as a parent, make sure that I lead them a little bit more than they lead me. But every single person in this country is a leader. Every single person in Network Ireland Cork is a leader, even if they don't have a position or a title, and even if they don't feel like it. We are all influencing people around us. And what we're all about is about strengthening that influence that we have, strengthening our character muscle as much as we can, so that we can have more positive influence with people.
That's really empowering, Joanne. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your view with us. And I hope you really can lead a little bit more than your children. I know that sometimes that gets hard. I'll now move into you, Barbara. Okay, so when I reach out to you for your bio, you also send me a few lines about what leadership is for you. I'm going to read that for our audience, so then we can hear about your view. So, recognizing that leadership can be isolating and lonely. I support leaders in their journey to be their very best self. Great leadership has great outcomes, and in our current complex time, we are in desperate need of courageous and authentic leadership. I'm passionate about helping leaders to work at their highest potential in order to empower and inspire their teams. In my experience, these deliver measurable results, both in financial terms and in engagement and happiness for employees. Do you want to tell us more, Barbara?
Sure, yeah. So I suppose my leadership journey started when I was about 6 years into a senior position in a US multinational. And I'd never been taught how to be a leader. So I had a team of maybe 40 people in finance. So I was a finance person. And there I was leading away. And I'd never learned how to do it. And at a point in time, I realized, gosh, maybe I should learn something about this. So I did a postgrad diploma in leadership with the Irish Management Institute. And what I learned was that I was doing lots of good things, which was great. I was doing lots of things that were really getting in my way and in the way of the team. And I realized, and Joanne and I will probably be singing very much from the same hymn sheet here, because I realized that I had a lot more influence than I was actually using, and that I had the power to influence my team. So I really wanted to tap into my own potential and the potential of every single individual on my team. And so what I learned then was really that authenticity, that being real with yourself as a leader and saying, well, what kind of leader am I? And what kind of leader do I want to be? And for me, leadership is about behavior. It's how do I think, how do I feel, how do I act? And that's a trio. It's like three legs on a stool, so I've got to be very much in tune with how I feel about things, how I think about things, and that will drive me to behave in a certain way. And so for me, leadership, everyone is a leader, as Joanne has said too. You just lead from where you are, and it's not a title. We all know plenty of people with titles who were not very good leaders, and we also know people who are superb leaders in committees and small clubs and all kinds of groups around the country. So it's not an entitlement. It doesn't come with the title and the salary. It should, of course, but it doesn't always. And so that's it. It's really tapping into being aware of how I influence currently and how I want to influence. And that's the core of emotional intelligence, which very much lines up with the LIFT message.
Great, Barbara. Thank you. I think that there is a big piece in self-awareness. And I as well, LIFT circles, they really focus on how helping people to elevate their self-awareness. So I'll say we now, without further ado, let's understand more about what LIFT does. We know that LIFT is all about positive leadership. And as we also said before, Joanne, you mentioned there that LIFT is the banking meat. So it's trying to remind us that everyone can be a leader, and we are leaders every day, and that could be anywhere. And if we want to lead anyone else well, the first person that we need to lead well is ourselves. That's probably the hardest job, be the example. So, Joanne, I think, can you tell us more about what you had in mind when starting LIFT? What brought you up to setting up LIFT?
Yeah, thanks, Paula. Really, for me, because exactly as Barbara is saying, that leadership is how we show up. If I've got people around me that are paying attention to what I'm saying, then I'm leading them. And the reason why I started LIFT, to go back a little bit, is because Ireland is a great country. I think it is a great country. I think I'm very lucky to have landed here, but we could be better. And, you know, if you go out and you talk to a few friends like that, they'll say, sure, we're grand, you know, sure, we're not that bad here, and so on. But all we have to do is take, you know, a really quick look around us or at newspaper headlines about the use of uncertified springs and spinal surgeries, you know, scenarios in different organizations that just were sort of going, how did that happen? You know, demonstrations recently outside the Dáil that happened with arrests and death threats and everything else. And, you know, we've had all kinds of different stories across the media that have happened in this great country. You know, we don't even need to mention cervical cancer, and that all raises huge things for all of us. Garda 999 calls that not only aren't being answered, but aren't being recorded or responded to or anything. And look at the levels of anxiety we have in our youth and the rise in negativity and often lack of hope. Now, I don't mean to bring down this podcast at all, but the thing about it is that we do have a great country and we have great people here. But for me, I only get one chance to live here. And when I looked around and I sort of thought, whoa, actually, I could be better. I could lead better. And let me see if I can gather other people that feel the same way, because this is extremely important. This isn't just about me pointing fingers at, you know, whoever's in the media or anybody else like that. This is a me problem. This is an us problem. It's about all of us together as a nation getting together and saying, do you know what? If I could get 1% better, we could lift this whole country and we could create social change in the country. And so that was a big part of setting this up in the beginning, that sort of realization. I know that I'm very lucky. I'm 53. I'm lucky to have got this far. Many of my friends, or some of my friends, haven't. So I do know how lucky I am. And while I'm here, I want to make sure that I leave it better than I actually arrived in it. So it's a movement to ask everybody to get involved and say, hey, I could get a little bit better. And we have a process and a way to show people how to do that. And the thing about it is, Paula, the other thing that was really at me before I set it up, that really, like, you think about it. I mean, I started my own business when I was 27. I was 20 years into running 2 businesses, and I decided to leave them to set this up. So there had to be a very big pull for me to sort of say bye-bye these teams and businesses that I absolutely adored, and to say, actually, this is something that's really important. So it was that whole piece of, this is a great country, but we could be better. And let me not fool myself by saying, well, I'll just kind of enjoy it here. But actually, we could be better. There are all kinds of pockets of this country that we could, you know, help to lift and do better in. So that was one thing. But the second thing is that leadership and how we lead, it does have an impact on our families, our communities, our organizations. And if you just take organizations, I mean, how I behave and how I act, in whether I'm in a multinational like you are or a smaller business, how I behave and how I act can stress other people out, can cause them, you know, not to want to come to work, to cause trust to break down. It has a lot of positives as well. But if I'm not intentionally thinking about these things and thinking about how I'm leading, then I could be subtracting value from the people around me. So it's really to empower the country and to empower people within the country to think about living in an intentional way. And really the country having the maturity to look at itself and say, do you know what? We are good and we are pretty good. There's no doubt about it. But let's have the maturity to say we could get better, and we know we could. So let's all pull together and get together in this movement and lift Ireland together. So that's a little bit of a roundabout way, Paula, of telling you why I set up. There's lovely research out there that I'm sure Barbara is familiar with about the return on investment of having leaders with good character. I mean, there's beautiful research from Fred Keel with Harvard Press around the character of leaders and the correlation between that and return on assets in organizations. That's a real tangible why we shouldn't be just saying leaders need to, it's not just about strategy. It's not just about P&Ls. It's actually about the character of the people that are in our organizations, and how we're behaving and how we're acting. It has a really strong relation to how we perform as businesses. It's extremely important.
Joanne, you're totally right there. And I really want to thank you, because your words were inspirational about, how we aim, everyone should aim to be better every day and to leave a legacy in the way that we give an example. So I think as well that what we would like to hear after, all that you have taught to us about how you brought up LIFT is what is the impact since LIFT have launched in 2019? There is numerous organizations and individuals that have taken part in LIFT circles and as well have become LIFT facilitators. So can you tell us more about what LIFT has achieved so far?
Yeah, and I'm glad you're asking me about impact, because I remember my brother is involved in LIFT, David Hession, and he's just a phenomenal human. And I remember saying to him at the beginning when we were starting out, you know what, David, if we don't get impact, we need to stop this. That there's no point in us just having, sort of getting all excited about, a cause or a movement or an initiative. We actually have to get behavior change. That's extremely important. And that's the thing I'm most interested in. And in fact, 5 years now into LIFT, my brother is just about to embark on a PhD looking at LIFT as a robust behavior change model, which is very exciting, especially as his profession is law. He's a solicitor. So the fact that he's gone into behavioral science, Barbara will love that now. It's much more Barbara and my field of things. We've converted him around. In terms of impact, look, the growth has been phenomenal and the pull from the country has been phenomenal. We have over 55,000 people now that have engaged in LIFT circles, and that's from our primary and secondary schools, mostly our secondary schools, over 300 of them now with students doing LIFT. We've over 130 organisations and corporates doing LIFT. We have over 25 charities and not-for-profit organisations that are involved in it. And, universities with 6th, 3rd level and further education institutions that are now doing LIFT. So our youngest lifter is about 11, where the transition year students go in and do it with some of the primary students. And our oldest facilitator is an amazing woman who is a facilitator out in Purple House Cancer Treatment Centre in Bray, an amazing organisation run by the fabulous Conor O'Leary out there. And she runs roundtables. She's 85 and she takes part in roundtables. So in terms of impact, it is definitely getting not as much reach as I'd like yet, but it is definitely getting there. Everybody from superb organizations like Spera Nua that helps people who have been in prison to rebuild their lives. We're working with them, to Laura Lynn Foundation, to the banks and the public sector organizations, private sector organizations, and the Burn Smokehouse in Lisdoonvarna. And of course, the amazing Wedding Dates in Cork run by Ciara Crossan and other great Cork businesses down there too, and Network Ireland. So in one way that's impact. The second, that is impact because it's growth and it's a pull that's coming from people say, yes, I want to use Lift so that we can build how we're leading. I want to strengthen that muscle. But more importantly, I think, is that over 80%, so 83% we're at pretty consistently, 83% of people who do Lift circles, at the end of the circles, are giving us examples of where their behavior is changing. And that's what we're looking for. So Lift is a reflective process to stop and look at how am I behaving and how I'm acting and take one small tiny action step to get a little bit better. So it's sort of aligning our intentions with our actions a little bit more. And we're seeing over 80% of people going through whole Lift cycles and are coming out at the end and saying, yeah, my awareness has risen and in line with that, my behavior has changed. And that's really what we're looking for, Paula, because if you think about it, that could mean one more teenager in the country being listened to and heard and understood. It could mean one more colleague that doesn't go home stressed because they got cut across in a meeting. Not that the person intentionally disrespected them in that way, but just because sometimes that happens. But, all these small, tiny actions can have a huge ripple effect on our nation and our community and our people. So impact-wise, we do a lot of measuring impact. We do a lot of different studies, some with the universities and some ourselves, but they would be... The growth in numbers is one, but that impact metric is probably the one that's most important. The one around behavior change is the most important one.
Thank you, Joanne. So small actions done consistently can lead to a big change. This definitely has stuck with me when I participated to the training to become a facilitator as well. So I can see that, like the impact that you were talking about, it is real. You have their great numbers and as well, like big congratulations for reaching your 5-year milestone is not easy. And you should be really proud of yourself and where Lift is today.
Thank you. But actually, do you know what? It in ways it's nothing to do with me. It's people like Barbara and yourselves that have just reached in and said, yeah, we can use this, and we've really sort of virtually linked hands and around the country, and people have brought it to their different organizations and said, yeah, I'm going to get involved in this. Let's do it. So it certainly made the 5 years very enjoyable for me, I have to say. I've got to meet the most amazing people along the way.
Great, John. So talking about amazing people, I would like to talk more about Barbara. So Barbara is a well-established Lift facilitator. So can you tell us since when you're part of the Lift family and what has been your journey so far with Lift?
Yeah, so I came across Lift actually when Marguerite O'Sullivan invited Joanne and some transition year students down to Cork to do a Lift circle at Network Cork. And I loved the idea that these youngsters were sitting with us oldsters and talking about leadership. So that was the first thing I thought, gosh, this is just so impactful. It really blew me away. And then what I really like about it is that it's simple. You read about whatever topic we're talking about. Let's say we're talking about, listening, which I won an award for, by the way. And so we read a little bit about it and then we reflect. And for me, the reflection part of it is something that is really missing in how a lot of us operate in the world, because we're busy and there's lots going on and we're in autopilot a lot of the time. And I talk to leaders all the time about building in reflection time. And so this is part of the LIFT process, and it's just a short reflection time. But reflection is where the change happens. And Joanne has already said that. That's where you change your behavior. And so that's really critical for me. And so when I became involved, I just thought, this is so accessible to everybody, from school children to wherever, to organizations, to across the community. It was just so accessible, and it's 40 minutes. So I challenge any leader to say, I don't have 40 minutes to talk about leadership, So it's easy, it's accessible. And so I've been involved, I've dipped in and out of it. Obviously brought it to Network Cork in my year of presidency, and also brought it to the other passion in my life, Rowing Ireland, for their female coaches, as they were developing female coaches. So for me, it makes sense, and I'm all about the sense. I'm all about the action. Let's not try and do 15 things. Let's do one thing and do it every day and do it well. And that to me is worth more than anything. And so those messages are all part of the LIFT process.
Totally achievable small actions that will bring to results. So you have brought this training to Network Cork early in September this year. Not everyone might have had the opportunity to participate to it. So might be anyone still interested in future training. Can you tell us more about what does it take really to become a facilitator? Aside of participating in the training, what is the one characteristic probably in the person to feel, okay, I can be a facilitator?
I think it's commitment to leadership. It's that I can be better. I want to bring this to other people, and I want to bring it to myself. We talked about that earlier. So it's somebody who is committed to leadership and who believes that with better leadership, we can literally lift the country to a higher level and a higher standard of leadership. And I think we need to do that.
Thank you, Barbara. So let's now look at the practical side, how a LIFT circle it is run.
Okay, so the LIFT circles are usually maybe about 5 people or so, and they are run by a facilitator who are trained by LIFT Ireland, and they get that's very specialised training, so they know exactly how to run a circle. And so normally we try to keep it around 4 or 5 people, because we don't want the circle to be too big. We want to create a safe space for everybody, and we also want to be able to keep within that time frame, so it doesn't become unwieldy for people to be able to actually take part in a circle. And so then over a period of, sometimes it's 8 weeks or it can be 12 weeks, depending on what topics we would like to cover, the facilitator will hold the circle, and we will go through the LIFT process as is outlined in their training. But actually, you've just come through the facilitator training, so maybe I get to turn the tables on you a little bit and ask you, how was that? How was the training, and did you enjoy it?
I did. I enjoyed it very much. I found it very insightful to understand the LIFT philosophy, what is that wants to bring to leaders. And you mentioned that it is a safe space. During the training, we did simulated 3 circles, and all of them, they really felt that it was straightforward, that the training, it really explains to you and make yourself at ease. It's the attitude that you bring to the circle is what is going to depend the results that you get from the circle. So it's not only about I'll say the facilitator itself is also a part of the circle.
Yes.
So he always speaks first. He always brings his experience to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. So comfortable is definitely the word with which I will describe the circles and the training as well.
And I suppose that facilitator also is a leader of sorts, because they have to lead out with their experience first, so that people feel, oh, well, it's okay for me to say what I want to say because the leader has done it first. So well done on doing doing the training, because I'll be calling on you when we roll out our lift circles in Network Cork over the next couple of weeks.
I'm very much looking forward to that. And I think maybe something important that you have mentioned there is that the circles, they have normally 4 to 5 people. So are those run in person? Can they be online? Can we have a mix of those situations? Can you tell us more?
Yes, absolutely. They're very easy to run online, actually. And certainly during COVID, we ran quite a few of them online. And it was a great way of everybody staying in contact with each other. And what I noticed with the circles that we've run over the years is that people make new connections and they stay connected because they've shared something of themselves in the circles, and so they formed a great connection, and that support is always there. So they can be run in person, they can be run online, and they can be run, as a hybrid as well. So very, very versatile.
Excellent. So you did mention as well that people share something about themselves. Okay, this is something that having participated in these circles, I really want to mention that you share as much as you feel
Absolutely.
Comfortable to. So that's why going back to a lift circle is a safe space, and there is absolutely no comments being made about what you are sharing. So it's again, I think that is you bring your true self to these circles, and you go away bringing your best selves back home.
Absolutely, I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. And that's the great thing I think of sharing too is, we talk about 1 in 3 Irish people feel isolated at the moment. So that sense of actually realizing, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who feels like this, or I'm not the only one who had a week like that. So that support is there throughout the circle as well. But you're right, there's no judgment. You're there on your personal journey. You're not, taking up or judging or looking at somebody else's journey. You're there to develop your own awareness and your own leadership. And that's the beauty of it.
Excellent, Barbara. So very much looking forward for the implementation of the circles with Network Cork. Joanne, I'll move back to you there because I want to, first of all, say that Network Cork values immensely the implementation of lift circles within the organization. But we would like to understand more how this collaboration come to life, how LIFT collaborates with Network Cork, and of course with many other organizations. So how does the partnership looks like?
Yeah, thank you. So I really, with every organizational partnership that we have, our vision on our side is to equip and empower and support that organization to roll out LIFT. So what we do with an organization, once we get in touch with them, as we did with Barbara, we form a partnership and we agree to do some training for people within the organization, as happened in Network Cork. And we train, let's say we take 10 people and we train them as LIFT facilitators, and then they roll out the process to a multiple of that. So about 50 people then go through the circles. So what we do is we show the organization how to run the circles. We then equip you with the materials that you need, every single ounce of material that you need to run the circles. And then we support you all the way. So once the circles start, so when you start running your circle, Paula, we will 3 weeks into your circles, we'll do a little check-in with you and online and just go, how's it going? Because if your circle isn't working for you for whatever reason, let's say people aren't turning up or whatever the reason is, we'll know by asking you a couple of questions what has actually happened there. There's a very structured process with a LIFT circle. And if that structure isn't being kept to, sometimes the circle can go a little bit off kilter. But the partnership, I mean, as I said, we've partnerships now in total with all of the organizations that we have. It's probably about nearly 500 different organizations. And it works because we get this really trusted partnership where we with some organizations, we've taken hundreds of people through the lift training, and they in turn then have actually multiplied it out to others in their organization. They then keep coming back to us every time they need lift training. So we provide all the training, and we just equip and empower people to roll it out.
That's great, Joanne. Definitely, when going through the training, I felt that structure was given to the facilitators. So, making life easier for everyone, for those participating and for those facilitating the circles.
Like Barbara said earlier, where she said people are busy. Lives are really busy. It is like people are on a Formula One racetrack. And what we're doing here is we're saying, come in for a pit stop. Come in for 40 minutes once a week. Come in for a pit stop. So people don't need to have to study something. They don't, they don't have time. It's not that they don't need to, but they don't need to for a lift circle. You don't have to prepare anything. You don't have to study anything. You just come to the circle, and where the reflection bit happens, that's only a sort of 3 to 4 minute part of the whole roundtable. There are other parts of it, but it's really looking at leadership, looking at a particular topic once a week, and then stopping and going, hang on. How good have I been at this lately? In the last 24 to 48 hours, how good have I been at this? Whether it's listening or positive attitude or respect or integrity or empathy, how good have I been at this? And how could I get a tiny bit better? That's really the essence of it.
That's it. So leadership bites, let's call them like that. So, and you're right, because when you look at your 24 to 48 hours and you try to score yourself about what you have done in something, like you will find for sure something that you could have done better in this last 24 to 48 hours. You're not looking at yourself how you do in general. So you can find a small action that you can do for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's interesting for me, the reflection piece, and you're right, like it's only about 2 or 3 minutes, but that's probably 2 or 3 minutes more than anybody would have done in a week on how have I been. So it's a great way to just check in with yourself and see, how am I actually doing?
Great.
That's exactly it. I love the way you talk about leadership bites too. I always describe when I do a roundtable, and I do them every single week, and sometimes multiples of them in a week. But I always find them like I'm finding creases in my behavior. So if I realize when I've kind of reflected on something that, let's say, for example, I did cut across someone in a meeting, or I didn't acknowledge that, they contributed in a meeting. I don't intend to do that, but that's a crease in my behavior. So, it doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that I didn't intend to that, but my actions weren't living up to my intentions. And what I'm always constantly reminding myself and others that I get a chance to meet is that I'm judging myself on my intentions, but everybody else is judging me on my actions. So, that really sort of stops me in my tracks and makes me think, okay, so, I do need to stop and reflect on, I might have intended to do one thing, but did I actually act and do something else in these busy, busy lives that we have?
That's incredibly true, Joanne, there. We are aware that lifts bring these circles to as well organizations that otherwise they wouldn't be able to access lifts, such as schools, charities, community group. How is that made possible?
Yeah, we have what we call a Robin Hood funding model. So, look, I'm a business person at my core. I love business. So when setting up Lift, one thing I loved about the structure of it is that it needed to be available to every single person, even if they couldn't afford it. It's not right that you can only access really good leadership material and something to become a better leader if you have money to afford it. So we designed the model in such a way that no matter what, everybody in the country can access Lift in an organization, in a family, in a community, in a youth group, in whatever kind of organization they are, whether or not they have the financial means to do so. And so our model is called a Robin Hood model. And so we have got amazing corporates and individuals that give us funding to use Lift. So they pay to use Lyft. They have budgets to use Lyft, and they pay to use Lyft. And we take all the excess from that, and we then give Lyft for free to others. So we're very, very grateful to the organizations that have done that for us so far. It has allowed us to extend the reach to 55,000 people that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So that's the way that the model works. It's Robin Hood. I made up that term when I was sitting across from a CEO in the early days. And he said, explain to me how your funding works. And I said, well, basically, I'm going to take it from you and I'm going to give it to everybody else. It's a bit like Robin Hood, and it's stuck, it just stuck. So any organizations that can financially contribute to us do. And we need that. I mean, we don't get funding. So we do need that. And we've got an 8-person organization now. And anyone in Network Cork knows that money, that businesses and organizations eat money, but we're not for profit. So when it comes in, we immediately look at allocating it out.
That's excellent. So anyone can be a Robin Hood. For anyone interested to donate, can find more information about it on the Lyft website. Is that correct, John?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. And we're very grateful to all our givers. They're amazing.
Excellent. So I'll say, Barbara, we are getting to the end of this podcast, and I would like that our Cork members, they actually know a bit more about what is going to happen now when the Lyft Circles, they're going to be happening for Network Cork, and how the rollout will look like.
Okay, so we have our first call out at the moment for facilitators. So I need to know how many facilitators we have, and we have quite a few. And I know who most of you are, so I'll be tracking you down. And also, just if people would like some refresher training, so Lyft have very graciously offered us some refresher training in case you haven't facilitated a circle for a while. They'll just do a short session to bring everybody up to speed. And then my hope is that we will be rolling them out at the end of October for about 8 weeks to just finish just before Christmas. Okay. And obviously it will be every week, and there's a theme every week. So I'll be keeping the members informed, and we'll be getting some mails out, and obviously keep an eye on the Facebook page as well. The details will be there.
Excellent. So I think that we have arrived to the end of the podcast. Is there anything else that yourself, Barbara, or Joanne as well, they're online, would like to add before we close, to invite our members to participate? I'll let you start, Joanne.
Well, firstly, look, I know I'm not in the studio there. I wish I was with you all there, but massive thanks, especially to Barbara there, who has spearheaded this, and to all those amazing people in Cork that have got on board and helped make it happen. We really, really appreciate it. And the second thing I'd say is that if you're wondering whether or not you should be involved, just do get involved. It is just, certainly for me, I've been in learning development my whole life. And starting Lyft roundtables has been the best personal development that I have ever done. It's been the most practical and the best sort of ongoing personal development that I've ever done. So I just say, yeah, absolutely, give it a go and get involved. And thank you again to you all. And thanks, Paula. This has been a great podcast.
Thank you, Joanne. We're really looking forward all to get a little bit better on our day-to-day when it comes to being a leader. I'll let now Barbara close.
So first of all, I want to say congratulations to Joanne and the team for 5 years, which is incredible. We know that the first 5 years in business is always the hardest. But also, just as Joanne has said, just get involved. It's really, it's very intuitive. It's very simple. You make great connections. You learn a lot. And in terms of personal development, it's so accessible. You don't have to go off and do a hugely, massively expensive course that takes you months and months. You can do this. It's very doable. And the impact is huge. So I would echo that. Just get involved.
Okay, so it's definitely doable. As Barbara has said, I've recently done the training. So if any of you just want to reach out or want to ask more about the experience before going and doing it, please don't hesitate to do that. As well, we will have room for comments in the podcast in our YouTube channel. So please reach out. Let's speak more about Lyft Circle. Let's make sure that everybody is very at ease and it will join us during these 8 weeks, as Barbara said, starting from from end of October. So thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Barbara, for being here. And until the next episode. Bye, everyone.